He thought he could dismiss her like she was nothing. Then he realized exactly who she was. Too late. Angela Davis walked into Madison & Company Bank on a crisp Wednesday morning, dressed in a tailored navy blue suit with a leather portfolio tucked under her arm. Her heels clicked against the polished marble floor as she approached the reception desk. The bank was modern, spacious, and decorated with sleek silver and glass fixtures, the kind of place that catered to people who didn't need to check their account balance before making a withdrawal. She had an appointment, a scheduled meeting with the branch manager to discuss the final steps of her business loan approval. It wasn't just any loan. This was for the expansion of her real estate firm, a company she had built from the ground up over the last 20 years. Angela approached the receptionist, a young woman with a name tag that read Heather, who barely glanced up from her computer screen. "Hi, I'm here for my 10:30 appointment with Mr. Whitmore," Angela said, offering a polite smile. Heather's eyes flickered to Angela, then back to her screen. She typed something, frowned slightly, then nodded toward the seating area. "Just have a seat. He'll be with you shortly." Angela nodded, took a deep breath, and walked over to the waiting area. She was 15 minutes early, plenty of time. She sat down, crossed her legs, and pulled out her phone to check emails. 10 minutes passed, then 20. A man in a grey suit walked in. No appointment, yet Heather greeted him with a bright smile. Within minutes, he was whisked away by a bank associate. Angela glanced at the time. 10:40. Still no call. No update. She adjusted in her seat, looking around the bank. Customers were coming and going, employees moving about. But Mr. Whitmore, nowhere in sight. At 10:50, Angela walked back to the reception desk. "Excuse me, I had a 10:30 with Mr. Whitmore. Is he running late?" Heather gave a tight smile, still not making full eye contact. "He's in a meeting, but he should be out soon." Angela exhaled slowly, pressing her lips together. Fine. She could wait. But then she started noticing things. A woman, blonde, mid-30s, walked in. She barely had time to check her phone before a banker approached her with a handshake. A man, early 50s, strode in confidently, greeted by name, ushered to an office within minutes. Angela checked the time again. 11:15. Something was wrong. She wasn't just waiting. She was being ignored. But why? And how long were they planning to keep this up? Angela shifted in her chair, her patience thinning with each tick of the wall clock. 11:20. Nearly an hour past her scheduled appointment. She wasn't just a random customer looking to open a checking account. This was her business on the line. She had worked for months putting together the proposal, securing collateral, ensuring every financial document was airtight. The bank had already pre-approved her for the loan. This meeting was supposed to be a formality. And yet, here she was, still waiting. Angela took a slow breath and scanned the room again, this time with sharper eyes. Patterns started to emerge. The woman in the sleek red dress helped immediately. The man with the expensive-looking watch led to an office before he even had a chance to sit. Angela glanced down at herself. Her suit was immaculate, her posture poised. She had seen executives walk into meetings looking far less put together than she did now. So why was she being treated like an afterthought? Her fingers tightened around her portfolio. This wasn't just oversight. This was deliberate. She looked toward the reception desk, where Heather was laughing lightly with a colleague. Angela had been polite, patient, respectful, but something was telling her that her presence here wasn't being taken seriously. She stood up, smoothed her jacket, and walked back over to the desk. "Heather, I understand Mr. Whitmore is busy, but my appointment was at 10:30. Can you please check how much longer it will be?" Heather barely looked up. "Like I said, he's in a meeting." Angela kept her tone level. "Right. A meeting that's run nearly an hour past my scheduled time." Heather sighed, finally glancing up. "Ma'am, I don't control his schedule. You'll have to wait until he's available. Ma'am, not Miss Davis, not Angela. Just ma'am, as if she were some nameless inconvenience. Angela pressed her lips together. All right, I'll wait a little longer. She turned around, but this time she didn't sit. She stood near the entrance, watching. 11:35. Another customer arrived, a middle-aged white man wearing jeans and a polo. He didn't even have an appointment. She knew this because she heard him say, I just need to talk to someone real quick. And yet, within 5 minutes, a banker emerged, shook his hand, and led him into an office. Angela's heart pounded. How many people had they taken in while she sat there? 5, 7, more. She took a slow breath. She had 2 choices. She could walk out, forget the loan, take her business somewhere else. Or she could wait just a little longer. Something told her this situation wasn't over yet, but she had no idea just how much things were about to change. Angela checked her watch again. 11:45. Her jaw tightened. Another hour had slipped by, and still no one had called her name. No update, no apology. She took a deep breath, calming herself. She had spent decades in boardrooms, negotiating multi-million-dollar deals. She knew how to handle disrespect without losing her composure. But this was something else. A deliberate dismissal. Angela turned back toward the receptionist's desk. This time, she wasn't waiting to be acknowledged. She walked right up to Heather and spoke clearly. I need to speak with Mr. Whitmore. Now. Heather sighed like she was being asked to run a marathon. Ma'am, like I said, he's busy. Angela folded her arms. Heather, I've been here since 10:30. I have an appointment. Other people who walked in after me, without appointments, have already been taken care of. So I need you to do something other than tell me to have a seat. Heather hesitated. But before she could respond, another banker walked past. A younger man in his 30s, light brown hair, navy suit, slick watch. He gave Angela a polite smile before glancing at the screen on Heather's desk. Everything okay here? He asked. Heather rolled her eyes slightly, as if Angela were being unreasonable. She's waiting for Mr. Whitmore. I told her he's in a meeting. The young banker gave Angela a more professional nod. What time was your appointment? Angela didn't blink. 10:30. His eyebrows lifted slightly. You've been waiting over an hour. Angela let the silence answer for her. He turned back to Heather, lowering his voice. Why didn't you check in with him? Heather gave an exaggerated shrug. He said he was busy. The young banker sighed and disappeared down the hall. Angela folded her arms. It had taken less than 30 seconds for someone to realize something wasn't right. So why had Heather been so comfortable ignoring her? She didn't have to wait long for an answer. Seconds later, a tall man emerged from an office down the hall, adjusting the cuffs of his expensive black suit. Mr. Whitmore, late 50s, neatly combed salt and pepper hair, and a face that screamed, I make decisions that affect people like you. He barely looked at her as he approached. Miss Davis, I understand you've been waiting. His voice was smooth but distant, the kind used to pacify someone without actually meaning it. We had an unexpected delay this morning. I apologize for the inconvenience. Angela watched him carefully. The words were there, but the sincerity wasn't. She glanced at the 5 empty offices behind him. Funny, she said, voice calm. You seem to have room for a lot of other people before me. Whitmore's expression didn't change. If he was embarrassed, he didn't show it. Instead, he gave a tight corporate smile. Let's get you into my office and discuss your loan. Angela stayed still for a beat. She could feel the eyes in the room now. Some customers, a few employees. They had noticed, even if they wouldn't say it out loud. She took a slow breath and followed him into his office. But something in her gut told her that this meeting, It wasn't going to go the way he thought it would, and soon he'd be the one regretting how he handled this situation. Angela stepped into Mr. Whitmore's office, her expression unreadable. The space was exactly what she expected. Mahogany desk, leather chairs, framed degrees on the wall, and a picture of him shaking hands with some local politician. Whitmore gestured to a chair. "Have a seat." Angela sat slowly, crossing her legs. Her patience was gone, but her composure remained. He pulled up her file on his computer, clicking through the pages without much urgency. "So, you're here about the loan. I've looked over your application, and while your numbers are solid, there are some concerns about long-term viability. Our board tends to be selective when approving large business loans, especially in certain industries." Angela tilted her head. "Certain industries?" Whitmore barely looked up. "Real estate is tricky, a lot of volatility, and from what I see here, your business has only been operating for, 15 years? Angela's jaw tightened. 20. Whitmore gave a small, dismissive nod and kept scrolling. "Right. Well, even with that experience, our board tends to prioritize businesses with stronger institutional backing. I'm not saying your firm isn't successful, but we have to be realistic about risk assessment." Angela let the silence stretch. She could read between the lines. This wasn't about risk. Her company had outperformed competitors with bigger names and deeper pockets. She had secured contracts with major developers. Her numbers were better than half the clients this bank had approved loans for. And yet, here she was, being told she wasn't enough. Whitmore glanced at her. "We could consider a smaller loan, something with stricter terms. But full approval at this amount, it's just not likely." Angela stared at him, her fingers resting lightly on her portfolio. Then she smiled. Not the kind of smile that softened tension. The kind that said, "You have no idea what's about to happen." Whitmore noticed. His brows furrowed slightly. "Something funny?" Angela exhaled and leaned forward. "Let me ask you something, Mr. Whitmore. How many clients did you approve today?" He blinked. "Excuse me?" Angela gestured toward the door. "I watched people come in after me and get escorted into meetings within minutes. So I'm curious, how many of them had their loans rejected for long-term viability concerns?" Whitmore's face stiffened. "Ms. Davis, every client is different." Angela nodded slowly. "That's true. But what's also true is that I sat in that lobby for nearly 2 hours while you prioritized everyone but me. And now you're telling me my business is too much of a risk." She let her words settle, watching the first flicker of discomfort cross his face. But then, the real shift happened. A knock at the door. Before Whitmore could respond, the door swung open. 3 men and a woman. All sharply dressed, all radiating authority. Stepped inside. Whitmore's face drained of color. The board members. Angela didn't even have to look surprised. She had been expecting them. "Angela?" One of the men, mid-60s, silver hair, extended his hand with a broad grin. "I had no idea you were meeting here today." Angela shook his hand firmly, her eyes never leaving Whitmore's. "It's been an interesting morning, that's for sure." The board members exchanged glances, sensing the tension in the room. "Is there an issue?" one of them asked. Angela smiled again, this time with genuine amusement. "Well, Mr. Whitmore here was just explaining why my loan isn't a priority. Apparently, my 20 years in business and strong financials aren't enough for this bank's risk assessment." The room fell silent. One of the board members frowned, looking from Angela to Whitmore. "That's surprising, especially considering your company's track record." Angela shrugged. "That's what I thought too." Whitmore's hands were gripping the desk now. He looked like he wanted to sink into the floor. Because what he hadn't known, what he had failed to check, was that Angela wasn't just a potential loan recipient. She was a long-time friend of one of the bank's largest investors. And now, That investor was looking at Whitmore like he had made a very, very costly mistake. And the fallout was just beginning. The air in the room shifted. Whitmore wasn't just uncomfortable, he was drowning. His usual smooth demeanor was cracking, his fingers tightening around the edge of his desk like he was bracing for impact. Angela didn't say another word. She didn't need to. Because one of the board members, William Hayes, had already turned to Whitmore, expression cold. "Mr. Whitmore," he began, voice measured, "can you explain why Ms. Davis was kept waiting for nearly 2 hours, and why her business, which has been pre-approved, is suddenly a risk?" Whitmore opened his mouth. Nothing came out. He was scrambling, searching for an excuse, for something that wouldn't make him look like what he was, a man who had just underestimated the wrong person. Angela sat back in her chair, watching the show. Finally, Whitmore found his voice. I wasn't aware Miss Davis was connected to the board," he stammered. "If I had known—" "If you had known?" Hayes cut in sharply. "So she only deserves basic respect if she has connections?" Whitmore swallowed hard. Angela didn't flinch, didn't smirk, didn't gloat. She just let the moment unfold. The woman on the board, a sharp-eyed executive named Linda Porter, folded her arms. "Let's clarify something," she said, voice crisp. "Ms. Davis is exactly the kind of client this bank should be prioritizing. A black woman who built a multi-million-dollar real estate firm from the ground up. That's the kind of business we claim to support, correct?" Whitmore nodded too quickly. "Of course. I completely agree." Linda's eyes didn't soften. "Then tell me, why was she treated like an afterthought?" Silence. Whitmore's forehead was damp now. He knew there was no good answer. Angela watched as the realization fully settled in for him. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a pattern he had been comfortable with for years, and today, it had finally caught up with him. Whitmore turned back to Angela, his voice suddenly softer. "Ms. Davis, I deeply apologize for any misunderstanding. Of course, we can approve your loan. In fact, I can personally expedite—" Angela held up a hand, stopping him. "No need," she said simply. Whitmore blinked. "Excuse me?" Angela gathered her portfolio and stood. "I don't do business with institutions that see me as an afterthought. I'll take my loan request elsewhere." Whitmore's face went pale. He had just lost a high-value client. And worse, he had done it in front of the people who controlled his future. Hayes exhaled sharply and turned to the other board members. "We'll be discussing this further in our next meeting." Whitmore didn't need a translation. His career had just been placed under a microscope. Angela adjusted her jacket, smoothed her sleeve, and finally, let a small smirk cross her lips. She gave Whitmore one last look. "Have a good day, Mr. Whitmore." And with that, she walked out. But she already knew the impact of this moment wasn't ending when she left that office. It was just beginning. Angela didn't look back. She didn't need to. As she stepped out of that office and walked through the bank's main floor, she felt the weight of every second she had been ignored, dismissed, overlooked. But now, she wasn't the one feeling small. She pushed open the glass doors, stepped onto the sidewalk, and inhaled the crisp afternoon air. Relief. Not because she got what she wanted, but because she chose to walk away. Her business would be fine. She had options. Other banks would compete for the chance to work with her. But Whitmore, he had made a career-altering mistake. And the beauty of it all? He had done it to himself. Angela pulled out her phone and dialed a number. Within seconds, a familiar voice answered. "Angela, how did the meeting go?" She smiled, stepping toward her car. "Oh, it was enlightening." She didn't have to say more. People like Whitmore always exposed themselves eventually. And today, He had done it in front of the worst possible audience. The lesson. Angela's story is a reminder that sometimes the best response isn't anger, it's power. Power to walk away. Power to expose the truth. Power to decide who deserves your time and who doesn't. Whitmore thought he held all the cards. He thought he could decide who mattered and who didn't. But the truth? He was never in control. Respect isn't something you ask for. It's something you command. So the next time someone underestimates you, dismisses you, or tries to make you feel small, remember Angela. And let them dig their own grave. Your success is the answer. If this story hit home, hit that like button. If you've ever been in a situation like this, drop a comment below. I want to hear your story. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, share it with them. Because trust me, this happens more often than people like to admit. But today, we're putting a spotlight on it. And that's power.